I had increasingly intense series of dreams involving water creatures like giant snapping turtles and giant squid. Also involving the perils of school, social life, and getting arrested. Arguably a scarier series of events than the monsters. What if, like, the real monsters are us, bro? Bro! But, yeah. 9 hours of vivid dreams with increasing intensity. At the end, my mom was driving me to school and driving the car off an overseas overpass straight into the water, seeing the enormous eye of the giant squid and handling it pretty well with a sort of a James Bond underwater transformation car. Not gonna lie, a kraken with probing tentacles rising from the deep is a wonderful, fantastical vehicle for horror. Probably the best. It's not as good when it gets too showy, you know? I guess they call that do more with less. I just call it efficiency. Or intelligence, because intelligence and efficiency is one and the same. I say this as a man sitting in a chair that he pulled off the street. Be wary of antique traders. Be wary of antique traders. Now, Nick Rochefort is a good antique trader, but his brain is also a little broken, so he's not like your typical antique trader you see. You gotta be careful with those people who are addicted to international commerce, like to the point where it's all they think about, and it's all they do. The international commerce itself is globalism. You know, when Alex Jones talks about globalism, he's talking about international commerce, internationalism. That's globalism. And it infects your brain with a very, very powerful demon of novelty and consumption. Gotta look out for that. There's a pretty simple answer to the question that I was asking. What is up with Spanish Americans? I'm talking about South America, Central America, and to a lesser degree, North America. What is up with Spanish Americans? I'd say it's the continuation of CIA projects like MK Ultra, Operation Mockingbird. That's after the JFK assassination. They went about trying to create and preserve a narrative. Noam Chomsky would call it manufacturing consent for the goings on, the coup that took place in our government. And I'm not a fan of Noam Chomsky, by the way. He literally, when he was brought up, hey, you went to the Epstein Island, he's just like, yeah, there's no problem with that. We were just there doing international business. Now, I don't think he was probably one of the people that were invited to the sex parties, but his brain is definitely warped from that encounter, especially if he's not doubling like back as quickly as possible and as strongly as possible. Oh, and a fan favorite, Operation Condor. That one's a little bit more complex. Operation Phoenix, Operation Condor, they're kind of the same thing, although Phoenix is the Philippines and Vietnam, and to a lesser extent Korea, if I remember correctly. And Condor is Peru, Chile, Argentina, and I think Paraguay. And Paraguay, if you didn't know, is the #1 hub where they bounce pedophile priests. So God save the poor people in Paraguay. So here's the important distinction. Here's an important distinction I've ruminated on for a very long while, and I finally think I got it together. Psychopathy is a pathology regarding all creatures. Sociopathy is a pathology regarding human interaction. So what a psychopath would be willing to do is torture an animal in public until an emotionally vulnerable person steps up and tries to save that animal, capturing that person, torturing that person too. Israeli society on its higher echelons, on basically most of its working echelons, is a deeply psychopathic society and culture. God knows how long that goes back, because it does seem like they never stopped sacrificing their sons, their firstborn. And American society has, in a very, very cold and dark way, reflected that psychopathy. And that's been extremely bad for us. The reason why we worship our cars and we are never satisfied or happy with our domiciles. We hate our neighbors. A lot of people worship things like sound, and we're devoid of real religion and tradition, is because of our connection with Israel. That's basically the number one entry point, to that poison that goes directly into us, you see. But the thing about the Zionists is they're exactly like the Nazis. So anybody who thinks that being a Nazi is an adequate solution to that problem is barking up the wrong tree. They're being manipulated. They're handing over their sovereignty to Mossad, and simultaneously, that is the plan that's set up, is to turn people into Nazis, which has its entire structure of neo-Nazism is entirely structured to serve that dichotomy, that seesaw between Nazis and Zionists that just goes back and forth, generating energy inside of it, and using just normal people as the fulcrum by which all the stress is displaced. So you gotta look out for that. Now, sociopathy is more libertarianism. It's more, in a way, what the Mongol Empire was to civilization as it spread out was sociopathic. However, they were also deeply environmentalist. And the backbone of communism, the foundation of communism, was when the Mongols went around and destroyed indulgent noble castes and classes. That is the foundation of communism as it rests. As it rested, because communism is probably dead. You don't see any place where it's actually attached to anything like a factory, and that means it's dead. It can't survive like a mustard seed in the hearts of the faithful, going in caves and worshiping underground like a religion, because it's anti-religion and it focuses entirely on secular pragmatism, power, and might makes right, and labor and industrialization. That's entirely what it focuses on. And the only communists that you still see today that I can point out are the ones around Inner Mongolia in northern China, in the Yuan region of China. And that's just because, as I said, that is the foundation of communism. All around the coast of China, it's completely dead. Does not exist. In some places in name only, but in general, it's just dead. It's gone. And that's good, in my opinion. But yeah, sociopathy, right? Hyper-patriotism, that is in a way a sociopathy, because it focuses on the fantastical version of the society instead of the realistic version of the society. And communism on the far left version of that far right horseshoe theory is the exact same thing. So keep that in mind. The distinction between the two is very important. I think there might be a chance Nayib Bukele prevents war with Lebanon and the U.S. Proxy state of Israel. But I hear rumors that he might be a drug addict, and if he's a drug addict, that's not good. That means he's on a very tight leash. But if he's not, he could do a lot for Lebanese American, not Lebanese American, but Lebanese American relations. He could do a lot. I see that. It's possible. If you didn't know, Nayib Bukele is Lebanese. Of El Salvador, if you don't know who I'm talking about. He's the guy who runs El Salvador. He's a kind of a dictator, a crypto technocracy dictator. Although it is a police state, so it's not necessarily a technocracy, but hey, what are you gonna do? There is not many differences in communism and capitalism. They both make slaves out of most of their population. The difference is in capitalism, 5 to 10% more people in the entire system are free than in communism, where there's a tiny portion of the population that's free. And but the people on the bottom get treated even worse than in communism. And then if you think, oh, but communism starves people, the Great Depression, our medical system, our for-profit medical system. That's all you really need to know. There's tons of examples of it. Genuinely, the people on the very bottom get treated worse. And the negative effects of the minds of those on top is also worse. So you get an extreme extremation, a striation there in that comparison. The degree to which it balances a budget to allow a middle class is where capitalism gets popular approval. It's as simple as that. And that's one of the reasons why the popular approval for our capitalist system is breaking down. And I've explained before how when communism was defeated in the 90s, the 80s and 90s, it flooded. Same as when Nazism was defeated and Imperial Japan was defeated. They both came into our country and became vassal states of our power networks. In a way, the worst parts about communism, which is the dismantling of traditional religious societies and stuff like that, flooded into our country. The torture, the totalitarianism, the every neighbor against every neighbor, the police state, that flooded into our country. And it's grown and grown and grown after incubating in the 90s. And most millennials never even had the opportunity to get a comfortable office job. The Gen X complained and complained about fast food, department store, retailing, or outside labor, which is arguably the most enjoyable one, at least in my opinion. People could be farming local crops or putting up greenhouses on the public land the government is selling right now to real estate conglomerates. But doesn't seem to be in the cards at the moment, and it seems to be the opportunity for that is getting tapped out right now for short-term fiat profit. Wild. Absolutely wild. It's very rare you get a millennial rags to riches story, like Null on the Kiwi farms, and God only knows how secure that is. Because God only knows what it would mean if he continued down the path when I left the website, or feral Zionists were crawling all over the website and making it absolutely nightmarish for just regular people to come in and tell the truth, while at the same time hobnobbing, snobbing with neo-Nazis and making things even more divided and even worse and even more striated in a way that breaks apart culture, not in a natural dips and hills sort of way. Tradition is not the worship of ashes, but the preservation of fire. Gustav Mahler. 70 IQ, I'm denying your authority, and 130 IQ, I'm negating your authority through action is sort of the same thing. It's also the thing needed, right? Not that 100, well, Fauci says it. I gotta make one of those with farmers and monks on the sides and a solar panel soy jack in the center. Calling yourself an executive or a founder is so low aura compared to saying, I'm a pioneer, I'm an explorer, I'm a human, and I'm coming. Oh, it's so wild that Alex Jones is capitulating to the guy with animal-human hybrid children and wants to make brain chips and put them in people. That's A lot of Democrats have the energy of cannibalistic rats on a sinking ship, but a lot of Republicans have the energy of a pilot driving it right towards an iceberg. -1,000,000 aura. Space is so fun. Why doesn't Musk ever go there? Bezos at least went into low orbit. Space is pee-pee-poo-poo. The Earth is goated. It's that simple. Don't complicate things. Never krill yourself. Anyone going to the Slop of the Cop event? Yeah, Jim Bob's Bar and Grill is going to fill the feed troughs with minute rice. There will be unlimited Fanta refills, and everybody gets a free bottle of Pepto. I had an insane thought last night. This is absolutely insane, so keep this in context. What if the Grecco-Roman consciousness is contained inside of the olive that grows in the superstructure around the Mediterranean proper, and without olives and wine to inspire pantheonism, or without Christianity to subconsciously supersede that entire culture, Mediterranean people lose their minds. What if, man? What if? There's gotta be some explanation for it. What if male Jews lose their power when they're outside of the presence of a female Jewess? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You know, both the communists and the Zionists love nothing more than destroying holy sites. ISIS too. But we know who funds them and props them up, which is the CIA, the Pentagon, and the Tel Aviv terrorist technocracy. It's that simple, folks. All right, everybody. Hope you all have a good. Cheers.